Welcome back to the final day of the first week of the Boss Responses podcast. Thank you for being here with us this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. And I'm excited about today's episode especially. When I first decided to launch the Boss Responses podcast, I knew I wanted Jennifer Goforth Gregory to be my first co-host. Jennifer has been a positive force of good in my business and for every content writer or freelancer who finds her resources. She's been running her freelance content marketing business for over 15 years, and she's great at what she does. She's written for top-tier clients, including IBM, Adobe, Google, Meta, Franklin Covey, and Microsoft. I discovered Jennifer years ago when I found her best-selling book, The Freelance Content Marketing Writer, in her Facebook group, which, by the way, is now the largest community for content marketing writers with over 8,000 members from around the globe. We'll talk about Jennifer's newsletter for content writers later in the episode, but I'm excited to announce that she's also starting a newsletter for all freelancers. I'll make sure the links to both are in the show notes. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and find out about Jennifer, her business, and her boss responses. If you're a freelancer, business owner, or anyone who deals with clients, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Teresa Edmond. I've been dealing with clients and running my business for nearly 2 decades. And in that time, I've dealt with my share of doubt, imposter syndrome, and not knowing what to say when a client asks a question I wasn't ready for. I created this podcast to empower you with the boss responses you need to grow your business. Each week, my guest co-host and I will bring you 5 episodes packed with practical insights. Monday through Thursday, we answer your questions. And Fridays, we dive deep to explore how our co-hosts embraced their role as the boss of their business. Welcome to Boss Responses. All right, Jennifer, today is the last day of your week with me. I'm so happy you were here. Now, for those of you who do not know Jennifer, I found her a couple of years ago when I was really diving into the content strategy portion of my business, and I wanted to know more about content and how it works and being a freelance writer. And I was already doing it, and I felt like I was doing it kind of slapdash. And there were a couple of specific questions I had. And in searching those questions, I found this lovely person. And since then, she has become a beacon of light in my life, whether she knows it or not. And I read just about everything she writes. I tell everyone to join all of her groups because I think she's one of the best resources out there. So Jennifer Goforth Gregory, how are you?
I am good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm so excited that you are doing this podcast. You always give the most thoughtful answers on my Facebook group and are such a big help to other writers. So I'm glad you're sharing your expertise and experience in a more formal way. So I'm super happy to be on.
Well, thank you. And thank you really, truly for being here. Let's start with telling us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I do pretty much 100% content marketing writing, and I focus mainly on the B2B tech field. I'm not very good at writing B2C, business to consumer, so I focus on B2B, and also spend time helping other writers through my book blog and training courses. And in my spare time, I save broken dachshunds.
All right. So let's talk about how you got into content writing. How did that start for you?
Yes, so I started out as a technical writer, which is very different than content marketing writing. I have a master's in that, worked in that for 8 years and sucked at it. I was not very good. It's very boring, and I spent most of my time trying to do other things. I started a usability program. I did UX design. I started a training program for writers, so nobody would notice that I actually sucked at my main job. Nobody actually noticed, which was pretty good. Then had kids, took 6 years off. I was working at IBM when I had my kids, and then did not want to go back to work full time. So decided to start a freelance business. This is 2008. And I started writing for Content Mills for 25 Story back in 2008. Then wrote for regional parenting magazines for $45 a story. Ended up getting a local newspaper, which is a regional newspaper, Valley News and Observer. I ended up getting hired to do a couple columns for them. and write feature stories for the local section. Did that for a couple years, learned a lot. And when they finally hired me one day, I realized I didn't know what I was doing, had never written a newspaper story, and sat there all day with a year's worth of papers and figured out how to write a story. And then slowly in 2011, 2012, got hired as one of the first writers with Contently, moved into content marketing writing, and have pretty much been doing that ever since. I've found it to be a perfect blend of the type of writing I like, use all my experience in B2B tech because I used to work in that industry, and I really enjoy it. I've grown up with B2B tech, and I love translating technical concepts to things that normal people understand.
Right. What you know, it works in your job too. So yes. Whenever you first started, so you transitioned from, you actually took a good long break before you went from brick and mortar job to freelancing.
Yes.
So did you find it difficult to make that transition into freelancing, like from a mental standpoint, or just even running your business, or did you just kind of fall into it?
No, and at that point, the expectations were low. My kids were little. I had 2 special needs kids. So it was bonus, anything I earned. It took a couple years for me to start treating it like a full business. It wasn't until years later that I said to somebody that, I spent the first couple of years struggling, and like, when did you start? And I'm like, 2008. And they're like, 2008, say that again. I'm like, oh yeah. I didn't realize I was starting in a really bad recession. It's not surprising to me that I really didn't get off the ground for 3 years. So I don't know how much of that was little kids or my mindset or the recession, probably all 3.
That makes sense. So what were some of the challenges you faced then and still face when dealing with clients? And how do you address those challenges?
So the biggest challenge to me, and I think it's the most important thing, is knowing your strengths, weaknesses, personality, and goals, and then picking clients where you're likely to be a favorite freelancer. Having the courage, and I'm going to say courage, to design your business in a way that works for you. You and I have talked about that we run our businesses very differently, and that's not a bad thing. We are both very successful, and it's because we know who we are, what works for us, and we're not afraid to do things that are different to meet those.
I think another thing is we both have very clearly defined goals.
Yeah.
When I'm doing content strategy for clients, the client's business goals are the first thing I get. And if they can't delineate those for me, then the strategy is not going to be successful. I think when we're doing our own businesses, we forget about that. We just kind of start doing the work and keep doing the work. And both of us have sat down at some point and thought, no, I actually want to accomplish something with this business. And that's made a difference. So if you're listening and you don't have business goals, you need them.
My business goals are to work with nice people doing great work that makes me not cry and earns lots of money. That is my business statement.
I didn't have the not cry in mind, but now I feel like I need to add it.
That means you haven't had a client that makes you cry in the near past.
In the near past, yeah. I've had it in the past. We all have, haven't we? But yeah, no, I'm going to add the do not cry to mine. Mine also includes, and my business is successful enough that I can travel wherever I want, whenever I want. That's still a future goal.
That's implied to me. Yeah. You mean work whenever you want or not work whenever you want?
Right. And if I want to just take a week off and go to Ireland, that's what I want to do.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So as your business,
my rule is if a client makes me cry one time, I should quit.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't like working with someone, walk away. 1,000%, or at least never work with them again. Life's too short for bad clients. Now, I have systems. We've talked about this. This is an area where we both are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and our little world works great for us. I have found that because I'm pulled in so many different directions, I implement systems. So I have an actual content management system that I've outlined. I have it kind of, I have this list of responses. If a client says a stupid thing, this is my very professional response I can send them, so I don't need to think about it. I have these systems in place to keep me on track, because otherwise I'll be like, oh, hey, look at that pretty butterfly. And then I spend the next 3 days researching butterflies. That's not how you work.
No, I try to make smart decisions. I think a lot about my decisions, but I approach everything very individually. And fancy systems I always am really drawn to, but they just don't work for me. I have to go with kind of a gut feel with a smart business decision. And before we had talked that works because I have experience. However, I still did that when I didn't have a lot of experience, because to me, that's how I gained it. I go a lot on gut feel, and but I'm very smart about it. I don't make impulsive decisions. I think about it and I listen to my gut about my business. So it's not that I don't have formal systems, but I'm very thoughtful about every move I make.
Right. And it comes back to those goals. Now, the gut feeling thing, I wish you should write a blog about that. Have you written a blog about that? Did I miss one? You should write a blog about that, because that would have helped me so much when I was starting. I did not feel like I could trust my gut because I didn't feel like I knew enough. You know, it's that imposter syndrome coming in. Even though I knew I could write, even though I knew I could edit, I was really good at that stuff. I did not feel like I could trust my gut when it came to managing my clients or just having a relationship with my clients. And now I do. So my systems undermine all of that. But yeah, there have been times that I've accepted a client despite my gut feeling, and it ended up being a cluster of magnificent proportions. And there have been times that I turned away a client that I felt like I should.
I have another rule, which is if I do not think I should take a client, every single time I hesitate, I regret it.
Yep.
So I do not have systems, but I have rules. And so that's a rule. If I'm on the fence, if I don't think it's a good fit, I should not take it.
Yeah.
Never once.
Which brings us to the point, you don't need to accept every client.
No, and I think that a lot of people view rate as the reason to take a client. I'm going to take this client because they pay well. To me, what they pay is the least important thing, and that is really the barrier to entry. You don't even go farther unless you meet the rate. And then you need to decide, are they a fit for you? Are you likely to become a freelancer? Is the tone in your tone of voice? Is it a topic that you know well? Do you like the people? And I'm a big fan. So one of the things that I do when I meet a client so a system that I do have is if someone reaches out to me or gets back, they say, I'd love to talk to you. I respond back and I say, I'd love to learn more. Before we set up a call, want to find out a ballpark of your rate so I don't waste your time. And then once we find that out, I'd love to get a call. So once we make sure we're in the same rate range, then I get on the call. At the beginning of the call, I always say, I'm so happy that we got a chance to talk because I'm at the point in my career where I pick my clients actively. It's very important that I find nice people doing great work. And I'm really glad to have this opportunity to see if we are a fit to work together. And it changes the conversation. It changes the tone. It puts me in a position, I hate the word power, but it does, because now we're equals. I'm not looking to be hired. I'm actively making a decision. And sometimes at the end of a call, I will say, this sounds like, I'll actually ask them to work together. I'll say, this sounds like a great fit. I would love to do a small project to see if we actually are a fit. I actually say it, and it's amazing the difference that makes.
Because it puts you on equal footing.
Yes.
You are partners from that moment on. And that's what I do as well.
So that's kind of I do have processes, and I'm very thoughtful. And I want to bring this back to kind of the main point that I know we've talked about before, is you have to design the business that works for you. Listen to other people, get their ideas, learn some best practices, and then change them so that it works for you. I respond back to clients in 4 minutes. I'll respond back on the weekends. I'll send emails at 11 o'clock at night. I'll do quick turnarounds. I offer unlimited revisions as long as they follow my certain parameters for reviews. I have almost no clients that pay more than $1 a word. I've broken 6 figures since 2015 and hit 200,000 for the past year or 2 years, and probably will come pretty close this year for the 3rd year. So I've had the courage to do what works for me.
And do you enjoy your business?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I can't. And people like, when are you going to retire? I'm only 51, but why? Why would I retire? And
exactly.
like, why would I retire? Why would I stop? It's so much fun because I only do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And people also, it's funny, people on the surface, it looks like I have a horrible work-life balance because I work at nights and on the weekends. But Tuesday, I spent almost all day kayaking. Yesterday, I left at 4:00 to go kayaking. This morning, I went and did dog stuff. But I worked till 11 the other night, and I worked Sundays. But it's a balance that works for me. And so I have great work-life balance if you get beyond the confines of what you think it should look like.
I think this is what I've decided, because I'm like you. My schedule is so erratic and it works for me. So I have very set hours when I do communicate with clients. So that's one thing where we're really different. But I had to do that because I had a super toxic client who would contact me all hours of the day and night. And it was actually weighing on me mentally. But writing especially is a very creative endeavor. Even if you're writing about something incredibly factual, it's still a creative endeavor. And I'm more creative sometimes of day than others. So I'm like you. I write really well late at night, or I'll be doing something on the weekend. Hey, we're supposed to go work goats today. Don't ask me. My life's weird. And I will, right then I'll be like, no, I have this article. It's in my head right now. I need to sit down and write it. I can write it in 30 minutes then. And if I tried to sit down and write it when I wasn't feeling productive, it'd take me 5 hours. So I try to go with the ebb and flow. All right. So setting expectations is another topic we've talked about, and both of us are huge believers in this. So how do you set expectations when you're talking with your clients?
So I offer unlimited revisions, but I have very specific parameters. Everyone that's signing off has to look at for the outline and the first draft. And one person has to review it so that I'm too old to do track changes words anymore, so that they can handle their own internal mess. That's the biggest thing for me. I don't really care about anything else. I don't care that a project starts and stops 43 times. I don't care if a deadline goes up and back. All I care about is that they don't drive me batty with reviews. And so I think it's important as writers to only set the boundaries that matter to you, not arbitrarily, because office hours don't matter to me, because if I want to get back with them, I do. If I don't, I won't, and I'll wait till I can. And so, but to other writers, it bugs them if they get an email on the weekend. I don't mind. And so I'm not going to set that boundary, but I purposely work with disorganized clients for the most part, present company exception, because those I do best with. I don't mind. So a lot of writers set boundaries because they heard they're supposed to.
Right.
And I think I absolutely am 100% in agreement with boundaries. But I think we should only set the ones that matter to you. What matters to me is that I get on the phone with them. They're not a jerk. If anyone's a jerk, I don't work with them before. And I, more than that, they have to be a fit. They have to be a client where I feel I can do my best work and be happy and enjoy them. And I want to meet them for a beer if they come to town. I don't work with people that I wouldn't want to meet in person. Because
exactly.
That's where I get my energy, is working with people that I enjoy. And yes, it takes, and if you're just starting out, you're not going to get there. I first started with the no asshole rule, that I wouldn't work with you for a jerk. And then I moved to, I only worked with nice people. And now I only work with very nice people. And there's a big difference. And that's how career success is moving from not an asshole to a very nice person. There's a big difference. I think everyone should start with the first rule, even if you're just starting out.
Absolutely.
And your aspiration should be to get to only going to client. And if you don't drink, then you would go have ice cream with.
Yes, absolutely. And touching on the boundaries thing, I'm a believer in boundaries, but I'm with you 100% that boundary has to have a reason. Yes. You can't just arbitrarily set a rule because you can. Right. Client management is not about lording it over your client. It's not about saying, this is my business, you don't have any say in it. It's about creating a mutually beneficial relationship where both of you win. So this is the last truly client related question.
I have one more boundary. Let me tell you a boundary I do set.
Okay.
So I take my vacations very seriously.
Yes.
And so I take 2-week vacations actually, I'm doing it twice this year. I mean, I take between 4 to 6 weeks off. And my boundary is I let them know like 2 months ahead of time. We start talking about vacations. And do not do new work on vacations. And I let them know that if I have a project in progress, I will make revisions while I'm on vacation because I don't want to slow up the process. I'm okay finding an hour. And most clients won't send it to you if you're in Europe unless they really need your help. But excuse me, the clients that I work with won't do that. And I do say if I do revisions on vacation, I need an extra couple days because I'm fitting it, and they're always fine with that. But that is my boundary, is that I don't do new work on vacation.
That's a good one. You don't have to name names. Tell us about your most difficult client situation you've ever dealt with.
It was for a very large tech company through a very large agency. And it was relatively recently, and I stayed much longer than I should have because of the clips. They were rude in the comments. They were routinely making me work on Friday nights, and I cried more than once. I talked to them about it, that I would not, I had to work where, I wrote an email that said I had to work in an environment where I'm treated professionally and respected, and I let the agency know, and then I walked away.
Because they were not very nice people.
They were not very nice people, and the agency told me that me and one other guy lasted there. I thought they hated me. He's like, no, they loved you. I'm like, what? We lasted longer. We lasted there like 8 months, and other people would get fired in a couple of weeks. And I stayed way too long, but I learned not to do that, even if it's a very large tech company.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And to me, now at the point in my career that if I have a problem client, I just don't work with them anymore, because this is the thing. I'm very sensitive. I actually lose money beyond that client by having a bad client relationship, because it goes into my productivity, to my mental health, into my whole life. And so it's better to not have that money than the damage it does to everything else.
Okay. And the lesson we all just learned, people, bad clients are never worth it. They have more impact than just the money you lose from them. 100%. Emotions do take effect. They impact our business. So we can't pretend we're automatons. We just aren't. So I want to move on to discussing another facet of Jennifer. And this is the facet that I absolutely love and adore. You work with other freelancers. You inspire freelance content writers and provide them with all of this knowledge. And you're so generous with what you're doing and what's working and what's not. Now, I understand that you recently did a personal coaching binge to help support the doxies, and you talked to just over 60 writers in how many weeks? 5. So she did coaching sessions for 60 plus writers in 5 weeks. What did you learn?
First of all, I was reminded what amazing, awesome, interesting people writers are. The second thing is that almost everyone is slow right now. I do think things are starting to pick up. So if you're slow, it's not you. The third thing I learned was every single writer at some point mentioned something that could be called an imposter syndrome. Everybody questions themselves, no matter how successful, how smart, how experienced. Everybody feels that way. So it's not you. It's part of the job. And I think that the issue is that writing isn't our profession. It's who we are. It's what we do. It's how we communicate. And so it's never going to be just a job to us. And it's always going to feel at least a little bit personal. So there's always going to be an imposter part of it. And I think we just have to know it's not us and that we all feel that way. The fourth is that's Bella, my blind foster dog. The fourth is that, one of the biggest things is I think writers really tend to overthink things. So the fourth thing is that I think that writers overthink things. So many times during the calls, people would be like, well, I don't want to do this because this could happen, or I've heard this, or someone told me this, or What if I do this and it doesn't work? And I feel really strongly we should make smart decisions. We should approach things thoughtfully. But you honestly don't know what clients you're going to love, what you're going to be good at until you try. And I think, as you pointed out when we were talking earlier, that so many of us have the employee mindset where failing is a bad thing and you can lose your job. But in freelancing, you have to be okay with failing because that's where you figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Right. And so the only way, in my opinion, to be really successful is to start and to try. And if something works, you do more of that. If it doesn't work, then you don't do it anymore. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with being kicked off a project because that's honestly where you learn. You learn what you suck at and what you don't do well at. And it's awful and it feels crappy, but that means you're putting yourself out there and trying things. And only then can you fully create a successful business that really you make a lot of money because you're open to where things go and you're open to being honest about your own strengths and what you're good at and what you suck at and taking more of what you're good at and not taking more of what you suck at, but you don't know.
Right. No, and I think all of those, I mean, these were obviously writers that you were coaching, but I think that's true across the board for any service provider, but especially creatives, because we do take it more personally. You know, if someone doesn't like what we do, then it's like they're not liking a part of us, which I think we need to get over that. Because like you said, it's failing forward. That's what we need to do is fail forward. So Jennifer has written a book and you wrote it a while back and it's
5 years ago.
Has it been that long? So it's been 5+ years since I've been following Jennifer because I remember when the book came out and it is absolutely amazing. And I love
one of these days I'll update it.
One of these days. A lot of it is still just really solid, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is.
Refreshed. It's starting to feel a little dated. I'd like to update it. I just keep coming up with more other things I want to do. And I know you're going to ask me why I wrote it, and I wrote it because my friend made me. She told me I was selfish if I didn't write it.
She was right.
Yes.
She was really right. And it's great. Now, so from that book, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes, because if you are interested in being a freelance content writer, or you already are and you're looking for ways to up-level your business, that's the book you should read. Now, you wrote the book, and then that's led to a whole host of other things, including your Facebook group, which is one of the only places I spend any time in Facebook anymore.
Yep. And so my friend Stephanie, who's been my accountability buddy for a decade, I sat next to her at a conference in 2013. She said, okay, so now you wrote the book. Now what's your marketing plan? And I said, okay, so I'll start this Facebook group and I'll help people and they'll buy my book. And she said, it won't work like that. And it kind of did. Now
your book, you had a goal when you started selling the book to just make your money back.
Yes.
And then
I still sell 2 to 3 copies a day, 5 years out on a self-published book.
And it's seriously, everyone, it's a great book.
But at this point, I have it marked. I have so the ebook is at the low is $2.99 because everybody can afford $2.99. Once I made my money back, I jumped it down to $2.95. I do have the hardback. The actual book is more, and I donate any profits I get from that to the rescue.
Now, this is one of the things that has been an idea that's near and dear to my heart for a while. You have almost a philanthropic business model. So you make your money, you pay your bills, you do your thing, but then you actually donate a lot of your business hours back into the rescue.
Yes.
I think that's wonderful. So when you support Jennifer and buy her book or are your courses that way as well?
So no, the courses go to help pay college tuition for kids.
Well, kids, dogs, you got to support them and feed them all.
Yeah, exactly. No, I wish I could get to the goal would eventually be to do that with the courses, but I'm not quite there yet.
You'll get there. I know you will. So buy the book, support the dogs, buy the courses. Now tell us about you have an AI course out there that is really valuable for writers, and I recommend it for everyone. And you're starting a new course.
So it's actually a course that, and we can talk about imposter syndrome here. I did it back 2 years ago as a lead course, and then someone made a comment in the forum that the audio wasn't good and I heard a dog barking. So then I never offered it again and let it sit on my computer for 2.5 years and didn't do anything with it because of that one comment. And so I have the course done. I just need to re-record it. And I'm hoping to have it up by September 1st. There'll be 2 versions of it. One is a full course on launching your business or relaunching it or up leveling. And then there's a shorter version that will be how to make more money. So you don't need to start from the beginning, but here's 3 weeks, 4 weeks to increase your income, what to do. What's the short version?
And is this specifically for writers or is it applicable to all business owners? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a writer, we'll make sure that's linked in the show notes. One last question. What advice would you give to service providers, so writers, designers, anyone, looking to create a lasting, successful partnership with clients while building the business that makes them happy?
Be yourself. Be who you are. And when you do that, you will attract the right clients, because the ones that aren't a fit for you will not want to work with you. And that's okay, because you want to work with people where you're going to be a fit and you can be yourself and they accept you for the good and the bad and you do great work. And so honestly, it's being yourself and not trying to be what you think they're looking for. It was funny when I first started, I tried to be all boring on calls and I wasn't getting work. And then one day I had some wine and I was funny and I got the work. And then I realized that I don't have to drink to be funny. And I should just be myself. And not everyone's a fit for me, and that's okay. But I want to attract those that I'm going to be a great fit for.
And that's it. You attract the people that you want to attract when you are yourself. It works.
So that is my advice, is build a business on who you are, not who you think you should be, not who you want to be, but who you actually are today and what you're good at and what you suck at and what you want to do. And and you know what? It sounds easy, but it's hard. It's hard because you have to be honest about your flaws. You have to be honest about what doesn't work, and you have to be willing to be weird and do things a little different. And when you do that is where you're really successful. And when something's working, do more of that. If it's not working, do less of that. That's it. But it's not easy. It's easy for me to sit here and say it, but it's much easier to follow a set of rules and be semi-successful than it is to really buck the system, do things differently. And that's where you make the money, but not even just make the money, but find the job satisfaction.
Yep. I started really enjoying what I do when I embraced my weird. It's worth it, people.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Jennifer.
It was great talking to you.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I know we've all learned a lot from you this week, and we'll have you back again in the future, I am sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.